Hello again. It's Josh Carr at the Real Angle, and today I'm speaking with Jackson Stith, principal at Maverick Capital. Jackson, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thanks for asking.
Good,
How about
good.
yourself?
I'm good. I'm good. For those of you on audio, I'm in a whole new location. I seem to bounce around from the office to the deck to God knows where. So I'm good. I'm good. But
Good.
let's talk about you today. So. Let's get right into it. What is Maverick Capital?
So Maverick Capital is a developer in South Texas, deep South Texas, otherwise known as the Rio Grande Valley. The Rio Grande
Okay.
Valley is a four counties on the southern border of Texas with Mexico.
And so the urban center there, what is that? That's San Antonio? What are we
No, it's about
population wise?
4 hours driving south of San Antonio. The urban
Okay.
center is the McAllen MSA and the Brownsville MSA.
Got it.
Um,
Got it. Okay.
yeah, so.
Okay. And you're doing land development down there?
From primarily land development, we're looking at doing some vertical, but right now, I've done a lot of vertical development in my career um, for other people and a bit for myself, but mostly for other people. And land development, just the money revolves so quickly, um, and sort of the pain to payoff ratio is much better than vertical. Um,
Yeah.
you
Let's talk
it,
about that a bit. I know
yeah,
you've done vertical development in a number of markets because I've known you for a while. Not
yeah.
that everyone listening knows that, but like before you were doing land development down in Texas, where were you? What were you doing before?
Sure. So I started my career in New York City working for Africa Israel, doing basically conversions into luxury condominiums in the sort of '07 cycle. Um, After that, I was kind of poached by the Related Group to come down to Miami and do. I was supposed to work on a big deal in Jacksonville, which didn't materialize. So I finished off some other projects for them. The market was heading south at that point, and I got a job offer from a guy named Bruce Eichner and went to work
Sure.
for Bruce Eichner in Las Vegas, doing the Cosmopolitan Resort and Casino. And from that experience, I was then poached by Emar out of Dubai. I went to Dubai for a number of years, did large scale master planned, mixed use developments. We're talking like, building miniature cities, 70 million square feet of stuff, this kind of stuff.
Sure.
Um, and there I was really on the acquisitions team, sort of the acquisitions and pre-development team for the master plan, negotiating sort of JV agreements, trying to bring in big, hotel flags, big retailers, so on and so forth. And then we would pass that off to the development managers who would build the actual verticals, right? All before that
Okay.
was in charge of all the verticals. Um, After that experience, the financial crisis finally got to the shores of Dubai and everything came to a screeching halt. And I came back home. There wasn't any development work to be done, right? It's the middle of the crisis.
The wake of the
Um,
crisis, yeah.
yeah. And so I went back to the Rio Grande Valley, where I'm from originally, and I, did a number of things there. But some of the things I did there was buy some value add opportunities with some partners there, and did value add plays on multifamily, and so got refamiliarized myself with the valley and what was happening there, and I could tell the market's not quite there yet. But this place is going to be, a gold mine
Now,
soon.
why do you say that? I mean, it's population growth, economics. What do you think's driving that?
Yeah, I mean it's there's multiple factors, but population growth is a big one, right? Like population there on both sides of the border, because you have McAllen, Harlingen, Brownsville are the major towns on the U.S. side. The sister cities right across the river are Matamoros and Reynosa. Reynosa is 1.5 million. Matamoros is probably about the same. The McAllen MSA is about a million people. Brownsville is probably 700, 800. So, you got 4 millionish people in that region, and they,
That,
It's a
That's a small
very unique
country.
place.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
big.
there's very unique dynamics there, right? Because there's a lot of back and forth both on commerce side and family and just social side of people going back and forth across those borders all the time. So kind of operates as one region in a way.
Sure.
The new marketing slogan for them is Rioplex. Not wild
Hmm.
about the name, but that's what they chose.
It's a
Yeah.
slogan. Sure, 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 sure.
So the median age of that place right now, I saw a demographic bubble coming. Right. I'm very data oriented. I saw a demographic bubble coming, and I know culturally the people there, if they leave, if they go to Austin or New York or wherever they go to study, they come back because family is everything. It's 90% Mexican American there. It's very much one of these places where people want to be because their family is there. They've
Sure.
been there a long time.
Culture matters.
Not a
They've got
lot
roots to the
of,
land. Yeah.
yeah, not a lot of transient population there, right? So
Right.
right now, the median age is 29. The fertility rate is 30% higher than the national average. The population of that region is expected to double in 20 years. So you're going from 4 million to 8 million people in a 20-year time period from, a year ago.
Got it.
So it's population growth. It's ever since NAFTA got passed. I mean, the unemployment rate on the border of Mexico used to be in the 30s before NAFTA. Now it's like 7, something like that. And that's
That's a functional
probably,
economy. That's normal.
yeah,
That's healthy.
and that's overrated because there's a large informal economy there. 30%, 25 to 30% of the economy there is cash based, right? So everything's underreported. How many people have jobs, how much money they actually make, all that stuff's underreported, right?
Right.
So being familiar with it, knowing all these things, both, the hard data and the soft data, I knew that things were happening. And you can also, actually get yield there. Because one of the things that contributes to this place being, uh, you know, ripe for creating value is that there isn't a great amount of institutional capital there, almost none to speak of, really.
Let me
Um,
ask you about that for a moment, because I
yeah,
mean, you're up against local players, I imagine, right? And it's probably
yeah,
not even like, by local, I don't even mean like, guys out of Dallas. I mean local, right? I mean, because
yeah.
as you
For the
said,
most part, they're homegrown.
sure,
Sometimes you see guys parachute in from Houston or even California or Dallas or
right,
Austin, and they'll do a thing and they'll leave. A lot of LIHTC stuff, low income housing tax credit stuff, will be from
credits,
guys
sure,
out of town. That's not the market we play in anyway, but they'll parachute in, but they have no real presence there to
sure. They
speak
don't
of.
have a property management team and a leasing team and brokerage or whatever
Yeah,
they need to
none of
actually
none of
do
that
the
stuff.
job. Do the
It's
job.
all local
So
guys.
so so I'm curious because you're talking about a region where obviously there's a large border down the middle of it. Um, the projects you're working on in general are the Americans on the American side, and do you have counterparts who are doing what you do, but in Mexico, or do you see people doing real estate on both sides of the border?
No, you'll see. So much less you'll see American guys go to Mexico, right? Because that is a dicey situation in many respects. I mean, it just functions differently. Property rights are different. Knowing
Right.
who you can trust there. I mean, you really have to have strong relationships to do business in Mexico. I'm not saying it can't get done, but it's much harder for a guy like me. You know,
Sure.
Prologis can go down there and do stuff, right? Because like they have all the lawyers and everything to figure it out.
And they
But
find a local partner they can partner with and all that kind of
yeah,
jazz.
all
Yeah.
that stuff, right? But
Yeah.
you will see guys, and gals actually from Mexico coming there and developing or buying assets or starting businesses. It's not uncommon for me to be doing business with people from Monterrey, Mexico. Monterrey is another good one of the strong keystones of the regions. Monterrey is 3 hours away, while most of the trade goes through Laredo because it's faster, and that's not part of our market. People from Monterrey with any means whatsoever will even buy houses and send their wife and kid there and send them through American schools, and they come shopping
I've
there, all that
I've
stuff,
actually done
right?
business in Monterey just randomly.
Oh,
I worked on a
yeah,
project in Monterey, which did not happen, but it was a trying to bring a W hotel to Monterey right before the financial crisis, and the
yeah,
project did not happen. So I've done a little bit of work down there. Um, shocking amount of wealth. It's amazing the
Shocking
amount
amount.
of old money. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's
I
like
mean, it really is like all the reshoring and all of the stuff that's going on with Mexico. Monterrey is
yeah,
taking the lion's share of it, right?
yeah.
So,
Interesting, interesting. So the projects you're working on today. So you're working in your neck of the woods, which is great. Local market knowledge, can't beat that. What is what's a typical project for you now, and what are you looking to do? I guess is the best way of putting it.
okay, so a typical project for us now is, probably 20 to 30 acres, and we land develop it. So what we'll do is we'll put it under contract. We'll get the necessary time for due diligence that we believe we need. We do a great amount of due diligence before we put something under contract through GIS systems, local, you know, our contacts with local engineers who know every piece of dirt down there, um, our contacts with the cities or the counties, so on and so forth. We can pretty much find out what the issues are with the dirt, and there's always issues with dirt. It's just how much are they going to cost to fix, and are they fixable? Are the two questions, right? So we know a lot of that before we put something under contract, but then begins like a 5 month due diligence period, which is kind of market standard down there. You don't get any
Hmm.
real kickback from that from the sellers, and you start site planning it. You start, looking at what are the easements going across it, what are the right of ways, are the utilities capacities there, these sort of a whole litany of issues that you got to kind of have to get your head around, and it comes down to, a lot of times it comes down to storm drainage is a big issue down there because it's basically a river delta, so it's flat, um, and utility capacity, right? So we spend a lot of time trying to understand those issues on a certain piece of dirt. We then, if the if we go through due diligence and we close on the land, it's very simple, really. I mean, it can get complicated, but theoretically, it's simple.
Sure.
Is that we site plan it out, all the utilities, bring the utilities, we do all the easement buyouts or whatever we have to do. Um, Water, sewer, storm, roads, curb and gutter, electricity, these sort of things.
Getting
But
it
in
so
addition
someone
to
could
that,
actually put a house on it.
yeah, but in addition to that, we also have to establish, the homeowners association, that legal framework. We have to establish the architectural controls so people don't go out there and just like build whatever they want. And we do resi basically. There's some deals we're looking at, which is kind of small bay industrial slash flex, um, which I think there's a great need for down there. Most of the stuff is tired, but that's more of a vertical deal. It's harder to sell those pads off to people. So, but staying on topic, we'll do kind of fourplexes, duplexes, townhomes, and right now we're not doing single family just because we can't deliver them cheap enough for affordability. So that's why we're really
Got it.
focusing on the other things.
And how many homes are we talking about for a typical HOA that you're putting together?
Yeah, so this last deal that we're rolling out of, which I'd like the opportunity to talk about in a minute, was the
Sure.
last
Yeah.
deal we're rolling out of is, um, 53 lots. There's basically 4 units on each, so you're talking about 212 units, right? A few of
Okay.
the lots you can fit another 1 or 2 units on. Don't know; those remain unsold. I don't know if people are going to take us up on building an additional unit or not. It's up to them, really. We might build some of them, but I'd rather just move on to the next deal because we have about
Sell it
four
to a
in the
home builder and
hopper.
let the home builder do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and go, right.
Now, on a project, and we'll talk about the specific project. So, the projects you're doing, are you amenitizing them? Are you building clubhouses, or is it this is all just like primary
So,
residences?
in my mind, it's an interplay between sort location, size of the actual lots versus amenities, right? So if you're in a B minus location and you're squeezing the lots down to make the deal work, then you probably need to offer amenities. Right now in the market, nobody's offering amenities. I think we will be the first to break that mold because I see I just want to de-risk my exit, right? And I know that by providing some amenities, which while expensive, cost me relatively little in the whole scheme of things,
Right.
that
When you
it
amortize it,
will help
sure.
me. It will help me exit faster. I'll be providing a real value proposition to the market as opposed to
So
looking
so
at
so
scale.
let's talk specifics. What amenities are you thinking about that you think ring people's bells today?
Yeah, well, so look, like I mentioned, the fertility rate is 30% higher than national average, right? Everybody has kids,
Hmm.
so you got to be kind of kid centric. So that means playgrounds and pools, right?
Got it. Sure. Sure.
Like
No.
you could go wild and start putting in clubhouses and this and that. But really, the renter who is renting in a fourplex is not the renter who's renting in a 250, 300 unit garden, fully amenitized garden style apartment complex.
Right.
There's a trade off there, right? And the trade off is, do I want to pay more for these amenities, but I also have to walk up 2 flights of stairs to get to my apartment? Most people don't want to do that there, especially people with grocery bags and 2 kids and all this other stuff, right?
Sure.
So
Sure. Sure. No, it's always interesting to me what amenities ring people's bells. Like it feels to me, not that this is what you guys are building, but it seems to me that every developer I talk to is putting in pickleball courts.
yeah,
Pickleball has become kind of insane. And I was
yeah,
talking with a developer about pickleball specifically, and I said, isn't this just like racquetball in the 80s, where it was every developer for around a 10, 15-year period was doing racquetball courts? And I don't think I've heard anyone build a racquetball court or talk about racquetball in probably, I mean, I'm 50. I don't think since I was a
yeah,
child I've heard anyone discuss it.
yeah,
But like,
exactly.
but they built a ton of them, and I'm like, so is pickleball the next racquetball? And we
Could
laughed
be
about it. It's like probably so. Probably in 10 years it'll
probably,
be like what what
but
the heck? What the
you need
heck's?
to get those renters in day one, and then
No,
refinance
exactly.
and
Well,
pull all your
especially
cash
if you're
out.
especially if you're selling homes, get them
Yeah,
in, and
exactly.
down the road someone will be like, why do I?
I don't think
Sorry, go ahead.
pickleball kind of like you know taken off there. I think they built some pickleball courts over in McAllen. I'm sure the craze will sweep there as well, but
It's also the demo you're going after. It's definitely
yeah,
pickleball definitely is for an older clientele. It's you're too old for tennis because you can't run as well as you could.
yeah,
So you just got a small court, you know.
and also a
Um,
younger clientele. A lot of like kind of young singles for the social aspect are getting into it, but like
exactly.
that's just not how people socialize down there.
No,
It's
and
just
that's
different.
fine, and that's
Yeah,
fine. It's always fascinating to me what amenities work and what amenities are just like, why would you burn money on that?
yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
look, playgrounds and pools, it's hard to go wrong. I mean, you're in a warm climate, so you're going to use the pool a lot, and
Yeah,
everyone has kids, so sure,
yeah,
that makes
that's right.
sense. Makes sense.
Yeah,
So the project you did recently, so your target, so this is rental product, and
yeah.
then you're selling off, like,
The
who's your
law.
buyer basically? What's the flow of
The
these?
buyers are typically builders, and the
Okay.
builders will um, build the vertical, and then
Hmm.
they'll lease it up and they'll sell the asset to an investor, right?
Sure.
Um, so there's a lot of who are the final investors. There's a lot of wealthy um, doctors, lawyers, maybe some guy who's in construction materials himself, Mexican national investors. There was a wave of Californians that came down there and started snapping up stuff because they could get 8 and 9 caps instead of fours in California or whatever the case may
Sure.
be.
Good yield.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, good yield. You can actually underwrites, right? So that's kind of the assembly line of that our corner of the market, at least for that. For the townhouse stuff, it'll be different, right? Like the final purchaser will probably be somebody who has determined that buying a single family home is out of their affordability right now, and but they want their own place. They're starting a family, have started a family, and they want their own place, right?
Right.
And there's plenty of that down there. While by every metric, wealth and employment and educational attainment has increased dramatically over the past 20, 30 years down there. there's still, quite a disparity between the haves and the have-nots down there. It's kind of the social structure. There's a large middle class, but the social structure skews a little bit more, um, I guess, stratified than other places in the United States.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Now, the deals you're doing, I guess one question I always like to ask people is what's the secret sauce? And by that I mean, what kind of deal is working for you that your competitors would you think pass by? Like, what do you think you're bringing to the table that not everybody else is?
So, look, it's just not just me. It's me and my business partner, Michael Cantu. Um, Michael was a Michael was a banker for 11
Hmm.
years, was banking a bunch of construction guys and development guys, saw that they were what they were doing and went out and did it, right? Did a
Okay.
small deal and did another deal. We met up. I think it's our joint efforts. What he brings to the table is he understands the market thoroughly. He's from there. I've been back and forth. I've seen other things, so on and so forth.
Sure.
So what I bring to the table is that I see other things. I've seen other things, right? So there's a way of doing business down there that um, is kind of routine. And what I bring to the table is I'm like, well, we don't have to do it that way. That's not how we do it in New York or Las Vegas. Like we're gonna
Sure.
we're gonna change that. Um, so I think it's a combination of both of our kind of like knowledge bases coming together. We are very good at maximizing the efficiency of land, right? We are very good at figuring out problems. If there's a problem with the dirt, we don't just throw our hands up and walk away. We go, well, what if we do this? Or what if we do that? Well, what if we offer the city this in exchange for that? And we just go through multiple scenarios until we've made the deal into something.
Some sort
Doesn't
of
mean
horse
we,
trade that you can do. Yeah.
yeah, and he has really good relations with the cities, and I know a lot of people there. He knows a lot of people there. You know, we don't do every deal. Sometimes we pass on deals. Sometimes we go, what, this isn't working. We've tried everything that we can, and we didn't know that we were going to have to expand this adjacent road, and that's what the city is making us do. And like, that's an extra $500,000. I'm like, sayonara. We're not doing it, right? So
Sure.
we typically, if we're not, we won't do a deal unless we're underwriting to a 3x on equity. And that's
Got it.
typically in a 12 to at most 18-month, you know, timeline of of that multiple. So
Yeah,
our
because so
deals,
much can go wrong if you can't triple your money while you're taking that level
yeah,
of risk.
exactly.
Yeah.
We'll look at deals for less than a 3x if we think that the exit risk is relatively low because the location is excellent, right? Um, so that's a few things. The other things we do really well is we don't. This comes to disrupting like the normal process of business. I'm not sure how all the other guys do it, but I think a lot of them rely on their consultants to kind of tell them what the problems with the dirt are after you put it under contract and after you've spent 50, $60,000 on engineering drawings. We know our proprietary methods. We know what the problems are before we write a single check to an engineer.
Yeah,
And
because you've looked at enough sites, you can actually figure it out. Yeah.
yeah, we use enough systems and have enough context that we in this case like we kind of know like how much these things are going to cost us, right? And then we build it all into our budget. The other thing that we do really well is that all the deals we do is they're off market. We're not looking at MLS. We're not calling brokers. If a broker brings us a deal, it's fine, but we have a very rigid kind of system of finding off market deals. And so we are contacting and talking to and negotiating with people who sometimes haven't been found in years. Like I've had brokers tell us, like, how'd you find this guy? Like I've been trying to contact him for 5 years.
So
So
going out to landowners directly, introducing yourself, working through the process.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it has to be said, like it's down there. Not that there's a lot of animosity, racial animosity or anything like that. I mean, there's plenty of intermarriages and
Sure.
stuff like that. But like,
Sure.
Michael Cantu is Mexican American, and I'm a what they call a güero down there, which means a white guy. And like
Sure.
sometimes I go talk to the old white farmer, and he goes talks to
I
the old Mexican
I
rancher, and
fully
like,
appreciate that. Look,
yeah,
it's marketing, it's affinity networks.
yeah,
People
exactly,
inherently just trust people who are closer to them in some capacity, be
yeah,
it,
exactly.
you
So,
know,
and you never know
whatever.
where they're coming from, so it just helps to like get past that from the immediate start.
No,
Um,
it's funny. I mean, I've done a lot of fundraising, for deals, and
yeah,
it's amazing how much money has been raised for projects in the pews of churches, in alumni networks, and it's always sort of
yeah,
like, hey, I see you every Sunday. I'm one of you. Dot dot dot.
yeah,
You can trust me. Which of
yeah,
course,
exactly.
you know, can some there are some bad actors who take advantage of that, but I
Oh yeah,
mean,
for sure.
the world is, there's a lot of Bernie Madoffs out there. We tend to discover them after the disaster, but yeah, no, that's true. It's true.
Yeah,
No, but that's, it's always fascinating to me too with partnerships. Like with a good partnership, you have to be bringing something different to the table. It's like, he's a lawyer, she's a banker. Like there has to
yeah,
be something. You can't just have two guys who have the same backgrounds. You're just not adding any value. And eventually you just walk off in different directions because it's like, well, if you're
yeah.
not helping me, then why am I here? You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so Michael, besides his like social and sort of professional connections there, he's excellent with dirt. Like he knows dirt down there really well.
That's great.
Whereas I focus more on the capital formation side, I focus on running the pre-development with the consultants. I have a lot of experience integrating those disparate, what's the architect doing, what's the engineer doing, and why do I haven't they
The
talked to each other?
operational, yeah,
Yeah, the operational stuff. Like,
sure.
guys, you're missing something here. Like, he needs he needs that CAD file in order for this to be properly coordinated. I mean, it's tedious, but like you just do it so much that you know how things are supposed to be happening in order for not problems not to result. When you're delivering the
It's
project, you're like, why can't what? We can't fit the building there. What are you talking about? Like
No, it's
to get all that
checklists.
done,
It's
we can.
checklists. It's critical
Yeah,
path management. It's all that sort of stuff.
all
Yeah,
that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, which is, yeah, it definitely, operational stuff is often tedious. That's just the nature of
Yeah,
operational
just
stuff.
the nature of it.
Um, Out of curiosity, from a funding source standpoint, because you mentioned capital, are you guys raising money on a deal by deal basis? Is this more internally self funded? Do you have a proverbial rich uncle? Like, how are you doing this
We
stuff?
neither one of us have proverbial rich uncles. I mean,
Okay,
Michael and I's early childhood is very similar. Where we were, his dad was a carpenter, my dad was a carpenter, right?
there
Like
we go.
we did not. There is no proverbial rich uncle. So we put in, we use our own cash, especially up front.
Sure,
We have 2 or 3 deals going at a time. We're paying engineers, we're paying, extension fees, sometimes we're paying, owner finance because they'll bridge us sometimes down there, these sort of
sure,
things. Um, so we're spending all that money. And then we raise money on a deal by deal basis. Our investor base from his contacts and my contacts ranges anything from like, you know, networks of doctors that we know down there that were introduced to us by another doctor to, kind of wealthy families out of Mexico City, Monterrey. Um, yeah, I mean, it goes up friends and family, but also there's, a couple of family offices that I know that have been flirting about doing something with us down there. I'm sure one day they will. Um, so yeah, I mean, but we're always looking to expand our investor base. What I get up and think about every morning is how do I scale this? I need to scale. I need to go faster, and
sure,
because there's so much
sure.
market opportunity for us that we could really be just pumping out returns much in a much bigger volume than we currently are, right? So
Right, right. So no, it's interesting. It's interesting. I mean, you're doing good, solid land development, and the talking about the process and the machine is always very valuable. So just a couple last thoughts here. So you're doing land development. The goal is like, what do you guys want to be doing in 3 years? The same but bigger? Are there other? Do you have any
Yeah,
vision of doing vertical again? Any other angles you want to get into, or just the
yeah,
same
there's
but
other
bigger?
angles we want to get into. I mean, look, a lot of times we'll do land development that has, a good commercial pad, and right now we're selling it. I would like to do the vertical on the commercial. Retail is very strong there. Um,
Sure.
Lots of places are under retailed. uh, if you go on like Placer AI and these sort of things, I demoed it down there. So a lot of these stores have some of the highest sales per square foot out of the nation, and people are surprised by that. But it's the Mexican nationals coming over, and it's also the fact that there's really not a lot to do down there. So people's entertainment is shopping and food and beverage, right? So they go out and spend their money there.
Sure.
I'd like I'd like to do that. I'd like to do some vertical on Resi as well. Maybe there's a site we're looking at right now where Resi on this side, public park, and then sort of a mixed use development, do the vertical of that with that's really food and
Interesting.
beverage and retail focused, right? That's kind of integrated with the park. Um, so yeah, I'd love to go vertical. In 3 years, I hope we're there because, you know, look, land development is inventory, right? And in that business, sometimes you're left with inventory. You don't know when the music's going to stop. I think there's a lot of legs to this market. I think it's going to keep growing just because of population growth, and the reshoring. Mexico, the reshoring stuff
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
happening.
Offshore stuff coming back to Mexico. Yep.
Yeah, and also like, look, SpaceX is down there. They're building a $18 billion liquefied natural gas plant down. Like, there's all this big stuff happening down there that's going to percolate throughout the larger economy, right? Um, and that's not going away. They're expanding the port of Brownsville because it's the last one that can be expanded on the coast of Texas. There's large infrastructural projects down there. I mean, there's so much highway work going down. 4 billion. Texas, state of Texas has
Which then
wrote a four
produces
billion dollar
jobs,
fund.
which
Yeah,
you get density and all that good stuff. It's all that
and
good
also
stuff.
like it just increases the trade with Mexico because now we actually have we're building capacity. Every bridge down there is being expanded, or they're converting pedestrian only bridges, meaning cars and feet, to like trucks can go across them now, and they're putting in the facilities to do it. The customs facilities do that, and these bridges down there are they're breaking at the seam, right? So
Right.
I believe, that if we only did land development for the remainder of our lives down there, our careers down there, that we'd be fine. However, I want to get AUM, right? So I need to build vertical to get AUM because, you know, you got to have some cash flow to get you through the lean times, or if there's a market correction or whatever the case may be,
No, it
right?
was said to me years ago, development's a great business if you only want to work 3 years out of 10. And I
Yeah,
realize that's a little overly dramatic, but it's true. It's a feast or famine thing. And then it's like, what do you
yeah,
do during the downtimes? And if you had some cash flowing retail, then your lights stay on and you're not panicked and you can
yeah.
continue to
That's right.
function.
That's
Yeah.
right.
No, it's
Yeah,
it's interesting. It's interesting. No, it's it's fun to talk to someone like you talking about land development because usually when I talk to people about development, it's they're going vertical because they're doing urban or they're
sure.
doing it in more of a major market. And it's always funny in the United States because only in the U.S. could we consider a region with 4 million people across two countries to be a small market.
Yeah, yeah,
I was talking to a gentleman out of New Zealand recently about some of the stuff I was working up in New Jersey, and I mentioned Newark, and Newark has about the same population as Christchurch, which is their biggest city. So you're just sort of like, well, you know, it's a
yeah,
small city by U.S. standards, but it's as big as your biggest city.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
it's
exactly.
not that small.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's it's perspective. It's perspective. No, it's interesting. It's interesting. No, and your comments about getting into other verticals, I hear what you're saying about needing to grow and building out the machine. It sounds to me like you're very much in the place where a lot of guys like you are, which is to say, you're talking to the family offices. You see the possibility to break to the institutional level, but it
Yeah,
hasn't
exactly.
happened yet. The engine
Yeah, it
hasn't
hasn't
turned over
happened
yet,
yet.
so to speak. Yeah,
It hasn't
and
happened
it's
yet.
and the family offices are fickle. They're tricky. They're tricky.
Yeah, they're really
Uh,
tricky, and it's fine.
yeah.
But we'll continue to raise. I mean, look, on this last deal that we're rolling out of right now, to take a little victory lap here. We told our investors it'll be 14 months. It's actually going to be about 9, right?
That's great.
And
Sure.
we will return to them an annualized return in the high 20s, low 30s, right? And some of these investors are wealthy people out of Mexico City, and they have already said, as soon as you write me the check, why don't you come down to Mexico City? I'm going to introduce you to some other folks, right?
And
So,
then one person introduces you to three, and three
right.
introduce you to nine.
So
Sure.
we just need to keep doing what we're doing and keep providing value to our investors. I'm sure our reputation will grow, and in 5 years' time, I won't be sweating every time I need to raise capital, right? Hopefully.
Yeah, it's from your lips to God's ears, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's but I believe you, but at the same time, it's tricky. Well, look,
Yeah.
it's good to talk about land development. It's good to talk about the process and what it's like to be in the weeds. I've covered the top because I wanted to cover. Thank you again for joining me. Much appreciated,
Sure.
Jackson.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.